All right, welcome back to trigonometry. We've got some problems to work through, so let's go ahead and think about this. So this number six. So if an angle is in quadrant two such that the cosine is equal to 0.48, we're going to figure out the values of sine and cosine and do everything to two decimal places. Okay, so we know that the cosine, okay, of theta is equal to negative 0.48. We know that theta in quadrant two. Okay, and our job is to figure out what sine and cosine is, or sine and tangent rather. So we want to know what sine and tangent have to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta is equal to 1. Okay, I know we've done that a little bit of that. And we're just going to punch these numbers in. So we're going to say that this is sine squared theta plus, what's my cosine? Negative 0.48 squared is equal to 1. The negative is going to turn into a positive because we're squaring it, right? So don't square a negative number and get a negative number, okay? So it's going to be 0.48 squared, okay? And that's going to be what this value is. So 0.2304. 0.2304 equals 1 plus sine squared. So we'll say that sine squared theta is equal to 1 minus 0.2304. Sine squared is equal, sine squared of theta is equal to, and we'll go ahead and type that in. So we have 1 minus my answer here. Okay, so that's 0.2304. So we end up with 0.7696. So 0.7696. All right. And then the last thing we have to do is take a square root. So we have sine of theta is equal to plus or minus the square root of 0.7696. Okay, so we'll go ahead and take that square root. So we have second function square root. Nope, sorry. Second function square root. Second function answer. That'll put in the 0.7696 for me. And we got 0.877, we'll say 0.8773. 0.8773. Plus or minus. Now, what do we know about theta? It's in quadrant two. So we know that all students take calculus. All of the trigonometric functions are positive. The sine is positive. Oh, it's the positive one. The tangent is positive in quadrant three, and the cosine is positive in quadrant four. So my answer here is a positive 0.8. We'll say 87. We'll go to 88 for the, I think it asks us for one decimal place, the two decimal places. So yeah, we'll just go to the two decimal places that way. All right, so that'll be our answer there. All right. Now we're going to go ahead, we're going to go on to the next one. So we have the tangent of theta is equal to negative 1.45. So we have tangent theta equals negative 1 point, is it 1.85? It's 1.85. 1.85, and we know that this is in quadrant four. Okay, so that's another thing to know. So we know that theta in quadrant four. All right. So in order to figure out what things are looking at, we could say, how do we want to go deal with this? There's a couple of ways we could go figure this thing out. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and be a little bit fancy so that we know that sine squared plus cosine squared is equal to 1. I'm going to divide everybody by cosine squared. So I know that sine squared over cosine squared, that's tangent squared, plus 1 is equal to secant squared. So I know that tangent squared plus 1 is equal to secant squared, and we can figure out what that's going to happen. Technically, that might be a way to go, and this is a plan. So we could say, okay, what is my tangent squared? We could add 1 to it. So let's go ahead and do that. Negative 1.85 squared plus 1, and we know that that's equal to secant squared. Okay, so we can go ahead and figure it out that way. So we have negative 1.85, and we're going to go ahead and square it. I'm just going to replace that. I'm going to say this is 3.4225. So 3.4225, because I know that this should be a positive number. I squared it, and we're going to add 1. All right. And we got 4.4225. So we have secant squared is equal to 4.225. All right. What we're looking at now. All right. And we are in quadrant 4, 4.4225. There we go. So we're going to go ahead and take the square root of this thing. So we have second function square root, second function, this guy here, and say, okay, that's going to be secant theta is equal to, let's go ahead and figure out, that's 2.1097, 2.10297, 0.109, let's see, 2097. Here we go. Okay, 2.2097. Now, I picked the positive one because cosine is positive in quadrant 4. Secant will also be positive in quadrant 4. Now, I know that secant is actually 1 over cosine is equal to 2.10297 here. All I'm going to do is say that this is 1 divided by 2.10297 is equal to cosine of theta. I just cross multiplied to do this. Okay, so we're just going to take the reciprocal, this guy right here, and then that's going to be our answer. So we're going to say, okay, let's see what happens with this. So what are we doing? We're doing this, that's reciprocal. So this was cosine is equal to 0.4755. So 0.4755. It only asks for 2 decimal places, so we'll say this is 0.48. Okay, we'll just go with that. 0.48. What else did it ask for? It gave me a tangent, and then we have to figure out what our sine and cosine are. Well, we now know what the cosine is. Okay, I would love to be able to, well, yeah, we could do it that way. Let's do some reciprocal magic and see if we can't get our sine. So again, we have our sine squared plus cosine squared is equal to 1. That's something that you remember for the rest of your life. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide everybody by sine squared. So we have sine squared over 1. So we have 1. Sine squared over sine squared will be 1. Cosine squared over sine squared, that's going to be cotangent squared, is equal to cosecant squared. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll flip this over. So we'll say that this is cotangent squared theta is equal to, no, we'll go ahead and do that. Don't do that. So we know what the cotangent squared is. Well, we know what the tangent is. Cotangent is just the reciprocal. So since tangent was negative 1.85, we're going to say that the cotangent, right, is going to be 1 over negative 1.85. We're going to square it. So we could square it. So we could say that the cosecant squared, right, is equal to 1 plus 1 over 1, negative 1 over 1.85. Okay, so let's go ahead and figure out what that's going to do for us. So we have 1 divided by 1.85, right, equals. Let's go ahead and square that. All right. So that'll give us that value. So my cosecant squared is equal to, I didn't add 1 to this, did I? I did not. So let's go ahead and make sure that we've done that. So we have 1 divided by 1.85. Okay. So we have 1 divided by 1.85. Let's go ahead and square this. Boom. Let's go ahead and add 1 to it. Okay, and now we have the 1 plus that. So cosecant squared is equal to 1.29 and some change. All right, 1.2922. Okay, go ahead and take the square root. So cosecant is equal to, okay, is equal to that square root there. So let's go ahead. We have 1.29. We're going to take its square root. Okay, here we go. And we have 1.1367, 1.1367. And it, just like we did the other one, we have 1 over sine is equal to 1.1367. We'll go ahead and we'll say 1 over 1.1367 is equal to sine theta, and we'll go ahead and get it that way. So that'll be, we'll go ahead and crisscross this guy. So we'll do this thing, take the reciprocal, and we got 0.879, so we'll call it 0.88. So sine theta is equal to 0.88. Okay. So let's see here. Let's kind of recap and see what we got here. So we know that tangent is equal to negative, tangent was equal to negative 1.85. Okay. Cosine was equal to, we figured that out, and that was 0.48. Right? That was 0.48, 0.48. Sine of theta, and I'm gonna have to remember, like, hey, it's in quadrant 4, so it's actually not 0.88, it's negative 0.88. And that's what we're going to figure out. I'm going to go ahead and double check something. What's my sine theta over my cosine theta? That's 0.88 over 0.48, or point, yeah, 0.48. And we'll see what happens with that. So do I get something close to that value there? So 0.88 divided by 0.48. We have to be close. So 1.83-ish, we got 1.85. Because I rounded so many places, I'm going to say that's probably close enough. Okay. So just kind of double checking what's going on with this, but there's my set of values that I would really like for this thing here. There are other ways to do this. Okay, this was not the only way to go. That was the way that I chose to go, but there's other ways to go. All right, so we could look at that. Let's go ahead and have a little look-see about what's happening with this. Let's see our next problem here. Okay, let's see. We have determined sine and cosine. Report the values to decimal places, excuse me, if the cosine is equal to negative 0.91. So that's very much like the first problem. So we'll say that we have cosine is equal to negative 0.91. Cosine theta is equal to negative 0.91. And we need to figure out what sine of theta and what tangent of theta is. Okay. So to figure out sine of theta, we can say that sine squared plus cosine squared is equal to 1. Okay, so we can say that sine squared is equal to 1 minus cosine squared theta. Sine will be plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cosine squared theta. We're going to pick, let's see, which one do we want to pick? We're in quadrant 3. We're picking the negative value. Okay, so we want 1 minus cosine squared. So let's go ahead and type that in. So sine theta is equal to negative square root 1 minus, what was my cosine squared? My cosine is 0.91 squared. Okay, and that's what we're going to do with that. So we're going to say we have 1 minus 0.91 squared equals, okay. Now, we're not done yet. We still have to take a square root. So let's go ahead and take that square root of that one. Okay, so that's going to be the square root, and then and that will be 0.4166. So we'll call it 0.42. Okay, because they only wanted the two decimal places. So we'll say that's 0.42. It's in my third quadrant, so it's negative 0.42. Now to get the tangent is equal to sine theta over cosine theta. We just figured out the sine was negative 0.42. We were given the cosine. That was negative 0.91, negative 0.91. Excuse me. We are in quadrant 3. All right. Yep, we are in quadrant 3. So we're going to be able to go ahead and figure that out. So we're going to say, okay, we have the negative signs are going to cancel, so I'm not going to feel the need to type all these guys in. So 0.42 divided by 0.91. All right. And that's how you go ahead and figure that out. Tangent's a little bit easier because, well, a little bit harder because the range for tangent goes up and away. So it could be from negative infinity to positive infinity for the range for tangent. So that's going to be 0.46. Okay, and that would be my answer for that problem. All right, and that is all 3 of the problems that we have to do for that one. So that's really good. We'll go ahead and cut it there. So we'll say thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.